You know what? You're in for a treat because she has that England accent. The England. Chip, chip, cheerio. No, they don't. Fish and chips. See, fish and chip. That's all. See, that's all I know. That's all I know. We'll get it there. We'll get it there. So we're going to give courtesy to Candace Parrott. Okay, because it's double R, double T. I do. Parrott. Candace Parrott. No, let me just keep it simple. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Oh my goodness. Unstoppable You Ministries, we didn't start getting into human trafficking until about 2015, 2016, when I was at a conference in Charlotte, North Carolina, when I hosted the Unstoppable You conference in Charlotte. And I had a presenter connect me with the Charlotteburg Police Department, Mecklenburg Police Department, and the detective gave a human trafficking awareness presentation. And my mind was blown. And ever since then, human trafficking has always been a major component to Unstoppable You Ministries. Many people have no clue what is going on, what it looks like, who to call, or anything. So I'm going to read a little bit of Candace's bio presentation, but I'm going to keep it simple because she has a lot. But she's all worthy and appropriate. See, stop stealing my thunder, girl. Okay. So Miss Candace Parrott, is it Burke Parrott? Okay, Burke Parrott. See the double names. Has a heart of gold and puts it out there. First and foremost, it's not about me. She is so humble, so beautiful. Candace is a life coach, advocate, and social entrepreneur serving at-risk youth survivors and less fortunate in a proactive, not reactive way, while also serving executives, entrepreneurs, and individuals in organization. She studied and trained in the UK, hence the accent, and is the founder of Fresh Waters, a unique organization offering individuals and organizations a fresh start and new beginnings. She's dedicated her life to coaching victims of survivorship, human trafficking, homelessness, and life struggles while preparing them to come out of the life and blend into an everyday life. So please give her your attention. The title of her presentation is Buyers Beware. Buyers Beware, Miss Candace. Please give her a round of applause.
Good afternoon, everybody. As Jennifer said, it's not about me. It really is about the victims and the survivors, and so that's what's important. I have to cram about a 3-hour presentation into 25 minutes. So I want to make sure that you get the most important parts. So when we talk about human trafficking, what is it? Force, fraud, or coercion. It's selling our youth. Now, yes, there are adults, but my passion is that we reach our youth. I want us all to leave this place today in a different space. I want you to think outside of the box. And I tell you that once you learn and get involved in human trafficking, you really, really do have a heart for it. Because what is going on with our youth in your back garden or in your backyard really and truly exists. So bear with me just for a minute while I tell you about the task force. The task force was formed in 2007. It is the U.S. Attorney's Office. It was the Baltimore State's Attorney and a collaboration of nonprofit groups that came together back in 2007. The reason they did that was because there were no laws and legislations that protected our children. And when I tell you that they could traffic a child and the child was charged with prostitution under 18, It was ridiculous. So the task force was formed, many units have come together, and we continue to come together. It is a long haul. So the reason I titled this Buyers Beware is in the last couple of years, we've really been targeting the buyers. So when people talk about buyers and why are you targeting the buyers? Because common sense tells us if there are no buyers, there are no victims and survivors, right? So when we go into these organizations, I have an HR consulting company and I do corporate life coaching as well as coaching of the survivors. But I coach the people that are in these Lockheed Martins and Northrop Grummans and the big organizations, that when these people are on travel, the next time you roll off a 12-year-old or a 14-year-old, you remember that's somebody's child. And when I tell you in a corporate setting, and I take my hats off to those that have invited me to speak to these executives, it really hits home. When you sit in a room with executives that travel, they don't look like what you expect them to look like. So we have the children that are being trafficked, the traffickers, and we have the buyers. So if we end the buying and we work solely on our children, we will end this. And we will not stop until this is ended. So the first thing I say is, what is it? It's force, fraud, or coercion. There's labor trafficking and there's sex trafficking. I'll touch very briefly on labor trafficking because that is where we've got the forced labor of our children. But what I really want to talk about today is sex trafficking and what is going on. First of all, let me tell you the myths. It is not just our females, and I just had a conversation with a gentleman at my table, that it really, really is our youth, our adults, our males, our females. It does not know any color, any shade. As Jennifer said early, it targets everybody. But what I do want you to understand is that it's not that white van. There was an email that went around about 2 years ago. They talked about the white van snatching our children and snatching people. Absolutely not. That is not what it is. What it is your child at the mall, your child in school, your child wherever your child happens to be, and you not knowing where your child is or who your child is mixing with. It is not poverty-stricken children. Absolutely not. When I tell you some of the human trafficking that goes on in Bethesda, in Montgomery County, in those high-end places, and people say, not in our county, doesn't happen in our backyard. Yes, it does. So I challenge you to take your zip code, Google your zip code in human trafficking, and see what comes up close to home. I think you'll be very unpleasantly surprised. So how do these traffickers get our children? We had a trafficker that came out of the life, and in speaking with him and interviewing him, one of the things he said is, I go after that child that's easy to target. So I was smiling to myself this morning as I heard the other presenters, because I said, won't he do it? God set the platform today when he talked about Mr. Tucker, when he talked about his alcoholism, and he talked about how his child was going to anybody for love. He should be thanking his lucky stars that his daughter is now not a victim of trafficking, vulnerable. So they don't ask to be in these situations, as you heard Mr. Tucker say. And then we heard from Wyoming, who talked about all those various things that went on. I think it was Tanya was the young lady who was, predicting a person that was raped. That's another situation. We have our trafficking victims that are sexually assaulted by their parents, by their grandparents, by their family members. And so what do? They get caught up in that trafficker, with that trafficker that tells them they don't care about you. Come to me. So what are they going to do? Be raped by a family member or the next door neighbor? Or are they going to get under that trafficker that truly can make them feel that they're the only one that loves them? And then you heard from the domestic violence group when people will judge people and say, well, why don't they walk out the door? Like I tell people, when we have a trafficked child, or we have a trafficked victim, or we have a trafficked adult that was a child victim, what do you do when they go before the judge and the judge could have been the person they serviced the night before? Because when I tell you, our traffickers, our Johns, they are not what you think they look like. Okay? The traffickers are not only males. They are females too. Because what happens, they graduate up out of the life and they say, we're a trafficker, but we'll treat you better than he did. So again, the myths. Our boys are being trafficked. Don't let it fool you. Do they come forward? No. But I tell you, it hits me in my gut when I hear people say, it's women, women, women. No, it's not. It's men as well as women. The men just ashamed, right? They're taught, you don't cry, you've got to be hard, you've got to hold it together. And then when they're trafficked, it's the shame of, am I gay? Am I this? Am I that? So the men do not report. So that's why I don't get caught up in statistics, because to me, the statistics are not real. Yes, people need them for their funding. I get it. But we will never really know how many get untold, how many untold stories. So when we talk about the domestic violence, that's connected to trafficking. When we talk about the child that's being raped or being abused in their family, they're a trafficking victim. But more importantly, it's when you think your child isn't being trafficked. You live in a good household, you've got a good lifestyle. I always tell the story of I connect with the FBI, and very often they'll call me and say, I have a family I'd like you to speak to and to coach and walk through. I got a call from a lady one day that was just sobbing her heart out that her daughter was 16 and she was from Prince George's County, and her daughter had been trafficked for 2 years and she had no idea. She said, she lives in my house, we're not homeless, she goes to school. Don't get it confused, because she didn't do anything wrong. The only thing she was guilty of is not knowing who her daughter was associating with. So when she called me, and Renee, who many people know with the FBI, called me and said, Candace, I really need you to work with this family. And I contacted the woman. She said to me, I try to reach out to the people in my church. And that's why I say for all us church folks, keep it in mind. You've got to keep an open mind. She said, my church looked at me, the people in my ministry looked at me like I had 3 heads when I told them about my daughter. So when she revealed what her church was, it was my church. I said, look at God. So she went full circle, true story. So when I was talking to her, I said, what did you know about trafficking before you found out about your daughter? She said, absolutely nothing. I said, okay. Would you have been one of those people that looked at you like you had 3 heads? She said, absolutely. So now we worked with her, we got her where she needed to be, we've got her daughter where she needs to be. But I just say, don't think that you're above knowing somebody that's been trafficked. And when I tell you to be involved with the children, be involved. When people say to me, what do we do? Well, how do we know? If you're teachers, educators, don't think when that child comes to school and falls asleep at that desk, obviously after COVID, but when they come back to school and they're falling asleep at the desk, don't assume they've been up all night playing video games. Because very much so, they could have been trafficked the night before. And people say, how is that possible? Because guess what's in school? Other children. So when they have a quota that they have to meet, and when they are forced to recruit, they are sent back to school to recruit. Had another conversation with some ladies at the table, and I talked about how sometimes it's hard to get in the schools. We push forward. And the reason we push forward is because you think it's not happening in your schools. You think it's not happening in your churches. It absolutely is. So how do they get the kids? As I was saying, the trafficker said, it's as simple as this. I can look at that girl and say, you have beautiful eyes. If she looks down, that's the girl I want. If she says, get out of here, that's not the girl I want. Why? Because they know how they can get to them. They will buy them clothes. They will get their hair done. They will get their nails done. They will buy them things they've never been used to. But like we tell the youth when we speak to the youth, you are going to pay for every penny of that on your back. Every single penny. Cold, hard truth. And so when we rescue some of these girls, and the first thing they want is a McDonald's meal, and people say, what? That's what they want. And it takes them back to where they came from. There are the simplest of things that we have to deal with. And like I said, I can't cram 3 hours into 25 minutes. But what I will say, if there's anybody in here that's interested in putting on a presentation, having a training, doing anything that we do it all free of charge. We do it all pro bono. We will come out to your schools, your church. If I can travel 2 hours at 6:30 this morning, we can certainly come to you. So please, please, please get involved. Know that if when I say children, they don't have to be your children. You didn't have to have born those children, but you all work with children or come into play with children in some capacity. Educate them. I had a grandmother say to me, well, you know, what do I do if my child doesn't give me the code to the phone? Because I tell you, know who your kids are communicating with. Know who they're online with. Where's Josh? Is Josh in here somewhere? So Josh, Detective Josh, right? He actually goes online and is one of those people that pretends he's that 14-year-old girl or that 14-year-old boy and then shows up and does the arrests. We love people like Josh. Love it. Because collaboration is my word, because I say if we don't collaborate, and that means all of you, each and every one in this room, when you don't know, you can't do anything, but now you know. So it's what you do with that. If you just leave here today and you do nothing, shame on you. Or do you say, how do I host something? It doesn't cost you anything. A little bit of time. How do I host something and get the word out there? Our kids need to know. If you go home and ask your children or your neighbor's children or your children's children, what do they know about trafficking? I think you'll be surprised because they probably know more than you do. They probably can educate you on it. But with the task force, we have public awareness, we have legislation. That's the time we need everybody to show up in January and stand up there to change the laws and get the backing that we need for them to understand our children and want to be children. Those are the things that we look for, that support. We have trainings, we train the nurses, we train the police, we train, you know, a series of people that the task force does. They do it all pro bono. So there's no excuse for somebody to say, I can't afford to get involved. All we ask is for a little bit of your time. And if you care about your children, you seriously will get involved. We have one of our survivors who actually was a college student here. She came to the area to go to college. Her so-called boyfriend, he groomed her for 3 months and then trafficked her. So people say, why Maryland? Maryland, because we have that main corridor. So when you come down 95, you've got New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. They're putting the girls, again, prior to COVID, they were putting our girls on airplanes, sending them to a hotel. They don't need anything but a school ID to get where they're going. They get them to the airport. It could be Atlanta, it could be anywhere. And what they do is they get them where they need to be. This is what you're here for. This is who you service. Get back on the plane, bring the money back. Trafficking is the number 2 business in the world. Second largest to drug trafficking. So when you think our girls, we get them back, and I always remember a parent that we returned one of the girls to that was rescued, and he said she was a runaway, right? So who are they? Our runaways, our giveaways, I say, and our throwaways. Those ones that people don't have time for. And so when we brought her back, he didn't want her back. He wanted to know who she'd been sleeping with, where she'd been. I said, you really don't want to know that. Because some of these kids have been with 10 to 12 men a night. So the little girl that ran away is not the little girl you're getting back. You can't now punish her or send her to her room. Total different thinking. So that's why I do what I do as life coaching, and I life coach them out of the life into real life. We teach them how to get back on track because so many more things go with that. They've been manipulated. They've now learned how to manipulate. They don't always want to be rescued. When people say we've rescued them and they run back to the trafficker, people say, why? Why would they run back to that? Because that's what they know. So as parents, grandparents, teachers, neighbors, please make sure that you're getting the word out there. There are posters on the table. There's a brochure that looks like this that tells you all about what we do at the task force. If anybody, again, wants more information, we don't have time for the questions and answers, but you can come over to the table afterwards. But please, please, please get involved because we really do say the more we spread, if each one reaches one, then that's one more that we've got to. So we've got the what. Is what is happening in our backyard. The why, because it's a big money maker, and why you should get involved is because we need to shut this down. The who, our children, males and females, and the how. How does it happen? It happens because we allow it to happen. It really is that simple. And if we all take an active role to shut this down, that's how we'll get it shut down, and it can stop. Thank you.